Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about the lighting I'm putting in. Assorted puck lights. One of the ones I really like is these Abu. Got them on Amazon, and they're amazing. Of course, they're just Chinese little lights, and they're very cheap. 8 for $60 or so. But they're beautifully made. They're very, very thin. Aluminum, machined aluminum LED puck light. Beautifully made. They're actually threaded, so the cover comes off. And along with that, the bezel. And inside that, there's some holes so you could screw it up against the bottom of a cabinet or something like that. We've put a few in here so far. And well, those ones are on and they're done. These ones I'm just putting in now. They don't have the bezels on yet. Up in there as well. Again, I'm not sure you can see this. I really like them, and I went through a few different puck lights first that were really big on the inside. In other words, they needed some space above the surface they were put on, and I really hated having all that bulky material inside the cabinet. And there's something just about the way these are machined that I just love them. Anyway, let's get them wired up. Cheers. With the plethora of 12-volt LED lighting these days, not marine, not RV, but actually home lighting, you can pick up this nice 5-pack of relatively tidy, I think they work quite well, and a nice diffuser warm light LEDs that are 12-volt. Now you got to be careful when you buy these. Make sure that in the package you see a 12-volt adapter plug, or figure out somehow to confirm that the LEDs are actually 12-volt. I bought a previous set that were gorgeous. Quite a bit bigger, but they're actually 36-volt DC, ran on an interesting power supply, so I couldn't make them light up. And there's also 110-volt LEDs now. I'm not quite sure how they do that, and I may be wrong. Please correct me if I'm not, but from what I understand, there are now 110-volt LEDs, probably because of the mass demand on the housing market. So anyway, in the meantime, pick up a set of these or something similar. These are by Illume, I-L-L-U-M-E. And they were cheap. They were like $60 for 5 lights, which is not too bad. Cheers. When I'm using a hole saw, the pilot drill is only slightly longer than the hole saw, and especially when the hole saw is largish or even bigger, like a 4-inch. It's kind of hard to be sure where you're lining up that pilot drill, especially if you've only made a mark. So I always take the hole saw off first, drill the pilot hole with just the drill so I can have a much closer, better idea of where I'm drilling, then put the hole saw back on and finish it up. Okay, so let's finish this up. Again, I hate drilling holes in things unless I'm sure. Anyway, let's hope that works. Okay, and lo and behold, it's right there. I didn't think it would be that easy. Okay, excellent. Let's put in another light. Cheers. Okay, so now we've got to pull a wire back. This is a really short pull. It should be really easy. I could use some nice fine wire, which is roughly the same gauge, and by the time I tape those together, it won't be much bigger and it will pull through easily. The only problem is I'm a little worried about exactly the route that this is taken. I may be hard up against a structural member. Who knows? I haven't laid this wire in by eye, and because I know I'm crossing a cross member, I don't really know how abrasion risk this might be. So I'm going to use quite heavy wire, which is much heavier insulation on it and good quality insulation. I sort of hate to do that because I think this is going to be a tough pull, but I'd really rather not be shorting out in short period. So when I pull wires, I use tape, and I use a long run of tape. Years ago, and a lot of people when they pull wires will put a hook in the wire end or the electrical, the snake wire. The only problem with that in a tight pull, of course, it gets a bit big, so it's kind of hard to get it past any obstruction. So I actually tape the wire and the snake wire into as small a bundle as possible. In some cases I'll do it end to end, but I'm hoping this will come through as it is. So tape that on good and tight. I leave the electrical wire a little bit short so I can pinch the end into a little kind of a point, so if it does come up against an obstruction, that won't give me too much trouble. Let's see if I can pull this through. Again, because I know I'm going around a corner here, I don't want to pull this too tight because it might pull it into a little tight area. So let's see if I can sort of push and pull this around the corner. There's my obstruction. I can feel it now. And if I can just push and pull at the same time, there we go. Actually turned out to be a pretty easy pull. But again, I'm glad I used the heavy wire because now I won't worry about that shorting out, at least in the next 50 years or so. Wired up. Okay, now to make the connections. Now, I don't want to get involved in the soldering versus not soldering debate. I know that the aircraft industry says soldering causes a joint that's prone to vibration failure. I believe in soldering and shrink tubing. I just do. So, not only that, I put silicone grease in before I tighten up the shrink up the shrink tube. But that's a bit overkill. But anyway, I believe in soldering, so I'm going to solder. Again, when soldering, make sure that you're heating the wires with the soldering iron and you're melting the solder with the hot wire, not with the soldering iron. That way you make sure you got a good joint. Okay, let's shrink tube. Done. Okay, so these lights, of course, come with a plug you don't need, so we can make quick work of that. And they'll also come with, usually, a cup for it to sit in. Basically, so it can be flush mounted if you prefer, like that, which I don't. So you can just push it out of that, and they'll have clips that will hold it into the ceiling. Now, you got to be careful. I don't know if you can see in this video, but that the clips are suitable for a very thin surface, which the aluminum skin is. So not all clips will work very well with a really thin surface. These ones are fantastic. Okay, let's get this one connected up. Hey, I love it. All right, well that worked out pretty well. And pretty elegant, decent lighting for the front of the coach. Now I do it in the back. Okay, so lighting in the bedroom, slightly different setup here. I'm going with these really beautiful little LED pucks, but they swivel, excuse me, which is kind of slick, and they sit in these really gorgeous aluminum housings. Now, they could be mounted flush because of that thin shoulder they have on it, but it would mean that all that material was sticking up inside the cabinet, and I want the cabinets to be as flush as possible, so I'm actually going to use the pucks. Now the pucks are quite deep, not the pucks, but the shells, I don't know what you want to call this. They have to be relatively deep to accommodate the swiveling feature. Maybe they don't have to be quite as deep as they are, but anyway, I think that'll work out okay. They're incredibly beautifully made. Again, these are also by Illume. I got them at Home Depot here in Canada. Not cheap, maybe $60 for 3, 20 bucks a piece, but not really that bad, certainly when you consider something marine. This is machined billet aluminum. I mean, that's an amazing piece of aluminum. So we'll get these in. They look great. The light from them is really nice and warm. It's like old style low voltage LED. So let's get a few of these on. I'll show you how they're going in the bedroom, as we are under construction as always. So I've got the first one on. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then same on the other end. I tend to sleep with my head at this end of the bed, so I have this credenza area for like a little night table. But I thought I was going to sleep with my head down there because it's sort of cozying around the corner. And really, I'm not really sure which way I'm going to use the bed in future, so I'm going to put lighting at both ends. They'll be on 2 separate switches. I'm also going to have some strip lighting there as well. Anyway, let's get some of this in and see what it looks like lit up. Cheers. Argosies, and I imagine Airstreams are the same, have these 2 switches here that operate the light over the door and the strange light that lights you in the face as you're standing outside. The switches that were here were, you know, pretty old and dry and nasty. Plus, I want to add an extra switch to operate the overhead lights. So I'm making a little panel for that out of aluminum, and I'm going to put in these same switches that I'm using everywhere else. These little illuminated rockers. They're cheap switches, but because they're round, they're very easy to install with a hole saw, and being illuminated is kind of nice because you can see them in the dark, and they're so cheap they're basically, you know, disposable. If you need another one, if one fails, it takes about a minute to change, and from Amazon, you can buy like 20 for $5 or something. I can't quite remember, but incredibly cheap. Anyway, let's finish this up.